Hello and welcome to Petrol Media, and today it's just going to be a quick one. I was sitting with the One Plus and I was looking at a video on Facebook, and a gentleman had recently upgraded the internal memory on his Live by opening it up, looking at the main carrier board. He noticed that the board had an SD card slot, and that allowed him to remove the internal storage and put in his own SD card. Now, there's a bit of a process that's involved in that, but suffice to say, he ended up having a 64 gigabyte SD card installed on his Live, which gave him a ton of extra internal storage. So, knowing that companies tend to sometimes be a little lazy, I figured, let me take a look inside of the One Plus just to see if there's a chance that might have happened in my case, where they actually have an SD card slot, since they went from 4 gigs to 16 gigs on the One Plus. Now, when I decided to use a drill, I made sure to set the drill to the lowest setting. That way the torque on the drill doesn't damage the One Plus or the screws in the process. Make sure you take off these plastic nuts on the back, because they will hold the board on afterwards. Just put them off to the side. I'm not going to have you guys sit through this whole thing. I'm going to speed it up in a moment, but just before you get started, if you're not comfortable doing any of this stuff, please don't try this at home. I actually didn't want to take apart the One Plus because, unlike the 1000 and the 5000, where it's a lot easier, this thing has a lot of tiny parts and I didn't want to do any damage. However, I did look at a couple of videos, and I figured for posterity, it'd be good for us to know for sure, is there an SD card slot internally for the 16 gigs, or did they bake it onto the motherboard? So let's flip this thing over. Let's get to work. You have to take all the screws off except for the ones where the foot pads are. You don't need to remove those. Once that's off and all the screws on the back are off, you can take a look, and right there is no SD card slot. So this tells you a couple of things. The memory, or I should say the storage on this, is actually baked onto the board. It's soldered to the motherboard. So you cannot remove the internal memory on the One Plus. They did make it so that the One Plus does have 16 gigabytes of internal memory and changed it out from the 4 gigs. But again, no replacement. Even though the carrier board is very similar to the one on the Live and Live 2, they went down this path with this. This is not a bad thing, but now that we can see definitively that there's nothing in there that you can change when it comes to the storage, it's kind of like one of those things where I've done it for you so you don't have to do it. Also, you can see from the inside of this thing why I really don't want to take this apart any further than this. There's a lot of very fragile wiring inside of here, and I am a pretty gentle person, but at the same time, I know myself, and because of that, I don't want to go any further than this. So I looked around inside just to check if maybe it might have been in a different location, but no, there is no other location. It is only that spot. So it doesn't exist on the One Plus. So we're going to go ahead and put this back together, and I put all the screws back in order of the way I placed it in there in the first place. That way I didn't make a mistake and put a screw in like the wrong location. A couple of the screws are different sizes, so that's something to keep in mind if you decide to open this up. You want to make sure you label your screws, or at least place them in another location in the exact order that you took them out. That way you know this screw goes back here and there. Also, the fitting needs to be pressed together a little bit in order to tighten it properly, because you want to press it together as you're screwing it together to make sure everything fits correctly. So I just turned it on real quick just to check, make sure everything is working fine, and it is. And I love this thing. I've been really enjoying the experience with the One Plus. And let me know what you guys think of the skin that I put on here. This is the 60, I believe the cash register style 60 skin that I have on the One Plus. I keep discovering new things on here, so my next step is to change some settings, like turning off the Q links so they don't pop up all the time. This is a short one. Like, share, and subscribe, and join me next time.